Anyway, hello everyone and welcome to game number 3 of our final matchup between DT and Cat. Cat is currently up 2-0, and to break that, DT tries to go to series.
I have faith in DT because I would like to see a couple more games.
This is definitely a generous map, except everything is in the south, basically. But
Yes,
there is everything in the south.
Gonna be a real knife fight. Especially with those big EMPs getting dropped.
Right, and a lot of high prices to start means that there's going to be plenty of money for people to go into early black market.
We're gonna see an expansive. It'd be crazy not to.
If DT is on tilt enough, maybe we'll even see an elite.
An expansive HQ has been founded.
I was not actually serious, but okay.
Oh, he's gonna tilt and he's gonna pick up the low silicon and not the high silicon.
I can fix that problem, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, 1 iron, 2 steel. Silicon is a reasonable start, although he is already just behind HQ1 to HQ2. Cat crushing a lot of stuff, getting all that early uranium and iron money, is able to get rolling so much quicker.
Yeah, that's
Cat
picking up a little bit of water.
Cat should also just have a pretty big advantage, having the combo tiles, having the access to water, having the cheap nuclear plants. Getting into power will be much easier.
Moments like these, all I can think is DT maybe shouldn't have conceded last game. Might have been able to fight that one, but
it would have been difficult. I think he gets majority ball last game, but the way this game's going, well, he probably won't get majority bot. He has the elite.
That's pretty much a guarantee.
So he has that going for him. We'll see what he can manage for the rest. Because I don't have the answer.
So, from Cat's perspective, my main question would be, what kind of black market do I want to drop on this fellow? Do I want to lock him into his water with a network virus? That would be a really painful thing.
The thing with network viruses is that they just drop off in duration so quickly, they don't end up being as impactful as you want them to be, unless you have a very specific, immediate purpose for them.
True, but just keeping your opponent when they're down at level 2 from using an entire triangle of their buildings for like a good 60 seconds, that can be decisive. As we see right now, DT pushing into farms, probably, I was going to say going for some water, but has plenty of that, so going for food.
I think even then, though, I would probably lean towards freezing out the steel. You still get the edge effect of the MP hitting the farms. It's okay.
I don't know if I like DT putting down a single solar panel. It was probably pretty cheap for him, but I feel like he could be using this tile more effectively.
Right, I think the initial idea was to start with 2 water tiles and 2 solar panels, but it didn't quite work out for him. Essentially picks up this.
Got another solar coming down.
But yeah, it's not going to be nearly enough. It's not going to do anything to stop Cat from claiming the vast majority of the power money off of these nuclear plants.
Nuclear does what solar don't on Ceres.
Yeah. DT does have the option of slow down striking the power, or just guessing that the goon is in the middle, as it always is, and dropping an EMP, but it's... Ooh, okay. That could change the game a little.
That actually pushes things very nicely into DT's court, even though he's behind.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about this EMP response, though. Just dropping it to the side of the nuclear plant. Maybe that's a misclick. Maybe he was really nervous about a goon squad being in him.
I'm thinking it was exploratory. He pretty much picked that up for free because he'd already invested the money.
Yeah.
So now he knows precisely what the situation regarding the nuke plants is. I mean, he could have already kind of assumed, but there's a difference between thinking and knowing.
That's fair. I think there was a good argument for just taking the risk there. You are behind a bit. Maybe not. Maybe he's not so behind, but I would have felt behind enough to take the risk, drop the EMP, get a little stronger effect.
I maybe would have dropped it on a steel mill, because I would be assuming it would reach over to the middle nuke plant, because that's where we know the goon is. And from there, as long as I can see it, you know, it can't really hurt me.
Yeah, I'm not sure I like that option, but it definitely is an option.
Probably better than dropping it just off to the side.
Maybe. It just dilutes the effect onto the power so much, and power definitely is the biggest issue. Muni is an interesting play. It's probably one of the better ways to counter this power in a line thing. Because you can only affect the building so much. Like, just taking away a building for 120 seconds versus a 30-second freeze plus a 90-second freeze, and you're costing them some adjacency too, and forcing some shipment, makes things all just a little more awkward.
On the other hand, you're exchanging $3,000 that you had right then for power money that's just going towards your debt.
Yeah, but you're also taking that money away from Cat, who would otherwise be
market collapsing. It's a tough call. You're probably not going to win or lose on it. This auction, maybe you do win or lose on.
Yeah, misclick sounds about right. 40k isn't completely unreasonable, especially when you have a solid lead, when your opponent's good production is all concentrated in one area.
And when you're in AAA debt to AA.
Right, it's not the worst thing for Cat to avoid, for sure. It is interesting to me that Cat is committing to quite so many aluminum tiles. It makes enough sense. These can all transition to water late game. Don't need to worry about ice. There are no nukes available. It should be fine. It's just interesting right now.
Yeah. And say it's probably working out just fine, considering both aluminum and water are reasonably within parity of each other. Plus, as an expansive, he just needs so much water. Though, looks like the colony is making a little bit of water just happen.
He is still a ways off from his upgrade. This free's doing a lot of work towards that. Until he gets his upgrade done, he's just going to be behind. Can't get into all these really good markets.
The black market is
Yeah.
online.
DT gonna want to hit level 4, get into either a patent lab or optimization centers. Probably both if he can manage it. But
I'm a little surprised he hasn't gotten into a pleasure dome, honestly. Expansive elite, that should be amazing. Chems are cheap. Power's dead.
oh. Probably the price on electronics is what's keeping him out of it.
Yeah, that could be it. Probably would have had some difficulty affording one for quite some time. And
I'd also be thinking that at the end of the day, chemical consumption is just a little much to keep up.
Yeah, and I guess there is enough money on world that, in other markets, that's not really necessarily a priority. But it's definitely something he needs to keep in mind going forward.
Especially if Cat's going to keep power this cheap. Whenever power's this cheap, you always want to be looking towards a pleasure dome. They're power-hungry creatures.
Yep. Always an interesting move. Players in 1v1 especially, keeping all their power down, just turning them off, or stopping auto-selling, something along those lines to keep the power price from tanking, but also to avoid having to scrap these buildings. I don't know if it's a play I like, but it's definitely an interesting idea.
I've always been fond of it on series just because the time it takes to build a building is so much, and power price will ping-pong around so quickly that it's often better to just be able to click a building and then get it back on. I've never been a big fan of turning off auto-selling power, but I am a decent fan of just, if you don't need it, turn it off.
It's reasonable. I think I would still prefer to see only 2 nuke plants, for example, if you're going to be doing something like that. You don't need all 3.
Lab is constructed. Let's get
Yeah,
our
that would be
science
fair
on.
enough. Maybe run both nuke plants, but have another optimization center right at the end of the line there.
Something like that. And if you really end up needing...
But I mean, you can see the price on power is just spiking again already.
Right. It just a lot of times feels a lot like if you want to do a play like this, you should be combining it with hacking or something along those lines, instead of just passively having 2 claims not doing anything for a while.
Time to start his own
Steve making good money on his dome, but it's going to be gone pretty shortly. Well, at least chunked
Once
into.
the chems land, it's much less, but still a lot, yeah.
The pleasure dome is completed.
There we go.
I wonder what goes
Now the
on
true
next.
prices. Still decent.
Very solid building. But just much healthier now that other pleasure domes knock the income down more. Before, when it was just too much to deal with and there's no good way to counter it. Well, Cat has turned 1 more nuke plant on, and now the other, and that is much better.
I don't think I've ever seen an elite in a 1v1 not D-level debt.
Yeah,
They usually get themselves out of it pretty quickly.
right, unless you manage to somehow pull off a power play, like, you're just going to be spending everything you have trying to keep up in upgrades and get your long-term investments done. You can't manage everything without having to eat that much debt.
The black market is
This is where I'd like to see DT having holograms down and trying to hologram some optimization centers.
That could be reasonable. I think a lot of times in like very high level 1v1s, and especially with bases this close together, the holograms aren't
Yes.
gonna pay off.
That's true, especially with spies available.
Mhm.
Looks like DT's looking towards a patent lab.
Yeah, he's gonna be late into that
successful.
compared to Cat, but he is a lead. It doesn't matter quite as much, just means handing Cat more money, which isn't great.
Congratulations.
I find it's never really enough money. You know, there are probably situations where someone could intentionally raise the price on chems to make it more valuable, but never really seems to be enough to swing a game either way. Usually get away with licensing, no matter what the price of chems is at.
It's
Let the plan
fair.
obsolescence begin.
I mean, yeah, the
Is online.
patents are probably important enough that that's not something that should stop you, but it's definitely one more little thing that maybe pushes you in a different direction.
DT not dealing well with those slowdown strikes. Slowdown strikes, of course, immune to goon squads, so you can use them even on a tile that is goon squatted, and so you can always be safe with a slowdown strike. Really hurting DT at the patent lab here.
Right. And at this point, there's just very little he can actually do. Cat already almost halfway to the buy on him. His dead situation isn't getting taken care of. It's
No.
hard to find a way for it to get taken care of. And it's just gonna
And
keep
even
getting
his
worse.
pleasure dome is being eaten into profit-wise.
Yep. Cat
Yeah.
also just has all the long-term advantages at the moment. All the patents, better optimizations, well, the only optimizations. Hard to see where DT gets back into this. Part of this may be just pushing a little too hard on some of these auctions. Part of it is just the found. And part of it is just Cat had a good plan and implemented it.
It was a good idea to go elite to prevent the majority buyout, but it wasn't necessarily, I think, the optimal found for the location. Silicon just was a little too tight.
Yeah. And we see just how much that's being a problem for DT now.
Yep.
Oh.
I would have maybe preferred to see an expansive there.
Something like that, yeah. Very well played by Cat. The decisive 3-0 sweep of DT. Probably
Yep.
not what most people were expecting for the series.
Well, you know what? That makes it a great series.